Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, the Yardbirds, bring their British psychedelic blues rock to Rams Head in Annapolis, Maryland on Saturday night. I spoke with founding drummer Jim McCarty about the pioneering band that launched guitarists like Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. Hey, Jim McCarty, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in DC. How are you?
Yeah, good. Lovely to be here.
Where are you calling us from?
I'm down in the south of France. I'm a ways away.
Well, we can't wait for you to come to Rams Head in Annapolis on September 24th with the legendary Yardbirds. Tell what I assume. What do you find that you get? You know, all the people that come out that were fans over the years, but they probably showed their kids, and now you have multiple generations come out to the show. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, that's often the case. You get grandparents and grandchildren, and the grandchildren have all got their Zeppelin T-shirts on, so they know all about the Yardbirds. It's great, actually.
What are we going to hear set list wise? I assume, all the greatest hits, For Your Love, Heart Full of Soul, Shapes of Things, Over, Under, Sideways, Down. I assume it's all, we're not going to miss any of our favorites. You got them all jam packed in there.
No, we got them all in there, and we do some blues covers as well. The Train Kept a Rolling, Smokestack Lightning, and Drinking Muddy Water, all those sort of things. So it's a pretty good show.
Awesome. Well, whenever I have someone on, a legendary band, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer like yourself, I'd like to move a little chronologically if we can. So I know you were born, England, Liverpool area, in 43. What sort of music did you listen to growing up, or how'd you get bit by the music bug originally yourself?
Well, I listened to all sorts really, but I really got into early rock and roll, like Buddy Holly and Everly Brothers, all the stuff coming out of America, Elvis and Gene Vincent. And then a few years later, we suddenly heard all these great blues men like Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf and Bo Diddley, and we loved their music, and we thought we'd play their stuff, and we loved it. We really got started on that stuff.
That's awesome. And then how did you remind us real quick how the Yardbirds were actually formed, that original lineup in London in 63? How did the original group of guys actually, how did you all meet and come together?
Well, we were all in the southwest London area, and we used to hang out in a pub in Kingston in Surrey, down by the river, which was just about 15 miles or so out of central London. And three of the guys were from Kingston Art School. They were art students. And me and Paul Samuel Smith, we were from a grammar school, which was like a high school. And we got together, and we used to go and watch the Rolling Stones, and we used to listen to these great records, as I said. And so we gradually built up a repertoire, and we formed the group.
It's awesome. I could just geek out about, the rock and roll history here with you so much, but I know a lot of our listeners, of course, will, one of the Yardbirds' legacy is that three of the most famous guitarists of all time played with you all for, somewhere along the way there. Tell me about, the early days with Eric Clapton. What did he bring to the group? Could you tell that, he was destined to go off and do his own solo stuff? Like, could you tell that you had a gem there?
Well, yes, he was always very, very ambitious and also very dedicated to what he did. He used to practice all the time. You get up in the morning, and I remember he was staying with me one time, and I got up, and he was like practicing before breakfast, So he was very, very, very dedicated and very keen, and he was very also attached to fashion. He always made sure he followed the right fashion, and he changed around a bit and had his haircut. He had a crew cut at one time, and then he grew his hair, and then he grew his sideburns, and so he was very on the ball, you know. And I think he was always destined to be a solo guy because uh, he found it difficult being a part of a team actually in the end.
Oh wow, yeah, and yeah. So I guess he broke off and did Cream and Derek and the Dominoes and all the solo stuff. But you know what? The Yardbirds had him first. You know, you guys, you guys were the originals.
Yes, we
You taught him everything he knows. uh, awesome.
did. Yes.
So when Clapton leaves, is that when Jeff Beck comes in, or is it Jimmy Page first? Remind our listeners the order there.
Well, we did ask Jimmy Page at that time, and Jimmy was very busy playing sessions in London, so he didn't want to join a band, but he suggested his friend Jeff Beck,
My friend Jeff.
who was his understudy. He was his understudy. You know, he played sessions when Jimmy couldn't make it, and he was quite different to Eric. He was like he didn't care what he wore. You know, he wore the dirty old jeans and the leather jacket and stuff, and had his hair really long. And he could play all sorts of stuff on the guitar, and he loved getting different sounds, and but he still does. You know, he gets wonderful sounds still, and he brought that all into the band, and that's how we ended up being called a psychedelic band. You know, we were supposedly all on drugs, but of course we were just playing. We just loved the music, and we were all, you know, we might have had a pint of beer or something. That was it.
Awesome. Well, sometimes you can do the psychedelic music without necessarily being on the psychedelics, you know. So
Yes.
all right, well then and then when it, just to round out the guitarist section of this interview, when did Jimmy Page actually come on? Was that was what, mid to late 60s?
Yeah, he came in, I think, in 1966.
Him and Beck were
And
there together,
he
right?
yes, he came in to replace Paul Samuel Smith, the bass player, first of all, and he was playing bass for a while, and then he swapped over with Chris Dreyer, the rhythm guitarist, and they Jeff and him both played lead. So we had them together for I suppose, you know, maybe a year, 9 months to a year, and that was, you know, pretty hot band, but you never knew what was going to happen. So you know, sometimes it was great, and sometimes it was terrible. So you never quite knew, you know. But it was formidable lineup.
Yeah, I mean, imagine going to see a Yardbird show and you look on stage and you got Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and you, and I mean, it's like an all-star, it's like all-star lineup on stage.
Yeah, it was good, very good.
Yeah, good understatement of the year. All right, well, if you got a second, I'd love to hear about if you have any memories of putting together any specific songs. I'm a big movie guy, and I always like Antonioni's Blow Up, and I know didn't you all do a song for it? It was Tiny Bradshaw's Train Keep It Rolling. You redid his Stroll On, right?
Well, yes, we did that, but originally, first of all, we went into a studio. We made up some songs. We thought, oh, we'll do a song, you know, an original song for Antonioni, but he didn't like any of them. So he said, oh no, I want you to play that Train Kept a Rolling. I've seen you play it, and so we had to change it around, you know, for the copyright, and we called it Stroll On. Yeah, so it was basically that Tiny Bradshaw song.
Gotcha. Sorry if that's a bit of a deep cut for anyone listening to this, but I love those Italian movies. All right, cool. Well, let's give them a more popular one that everybody knows. For Your Love. How did that come together? I guess Graham Goldman wrote that, but do you remember being in the studio recording that one specifically?
Oh yes, in fact, we were playing with the Beatles at their Christmas show in Christmas 1964. And there was a publisher in the audience, and he had the demo disc of that song. and he thought it would suit us. So he got that over to our manager, Giorgio Gomelski, and we all had a meeting. We listened to Graham's demo of it, and we loved it. Apart from Eric, who didn't, he thought it was too pop. And then we went in the studio and we put that down, and it was obviously going to be a hit as soon as we started. So it sounded great straight away, and it still does sound great,
I think it does. I think it does. How about Heart Full of Soul? I guess that was probably the first one after Beck replaced Clapton, but any memories of jumping in the studio and recording that one, or how that one even came together? I know Graham wrote that again, but musically, memories of actually recording it?
Well, it was another Graham Gouldman song. We went in the studio, and our manager booked a sitar player to play the beginning, the little riff at the beginning. And so we recorded it with the sitar, but it sounded a bit weak, and Jeff said, "Oh, I can play this." It's very easy. So he played the riff very on his his fuzz box, and it was a very, very much a great sounding riff. So we went with the Jeff version.
Awesome. How about Evil Hearted You? Why do you think that connected with audiences? Do you think it was just other, listeners could relate to, seeking a lady's love and I don't know. Why do you think it hit?
Well, it was another Graham Gouldman. It was the third one we did. We did three altogether, and it was another moody song. It was in a minor key. Yeah, it was sort of the girl that gets the better of you sort of thing. I guess everyone's had that sort of story, so everyone could relate to it. It was another great song as well. Evil Hearted You. And it featured a great slide solo from Jeff. It was a good one.
Let's jump to one that you co-wrote, because we're giving Graham a lot of credit, but we're here talking with Jim McCarty, folks. So I know you get a songwriting credit on "Shapes of Things," one of the Yardbirds, most famous ones. Was it? Would you? I think I've read that it's like Paul McCartney, Jimi Hendrix, a bunch of people praised it as influencing on them, but would you consider that? Was it the first mainstream psychedelic song? I mean, what would be the I feel like it sort of paved the way.
Well, yes, I'd say it was. I think it was a good it was a good effort. I mean, we were in Chicago. It was on an early tour, and we were part of the British invasion. We were right up there, very popular. And we went into Chess Studios, which was a blues studio, and we worked out the basis of it before we went in, and then we went in the studio and recorded the backing track there, and it all sounded great because the studios sounded so much better in America at that time. They sounded the drum sound particularly was much better than in England, because the American engineers knew what they were doing. They've been doing rock and roll for so long. And of course, the bonus for us was that it was Chess Studios, which was a really famous blues studio where all of great blues players had recorded. Muddy Waters and Bo Diddley, Howlin' Wolf, all those guys have been in there. So it was very exciting for us to do that song.
Awesome. Well, maybe time for one more, because you've been generous with your time, but what we already mentioned, Over, Under, Sideways, Down. Take me in a deep dive into that. That's you keep the psychedelic rock going, but you bring in the blues that you guys are famous for too. Tell me what I know you co-wrote that as well, but what wasn't it at least somewhat inspired by Rock Around the Clock, that the Bill Haley Comet song? Didn't you? Wasn't it sort of a riff off of that, and then you took it and made it into its own hit?
Well, yeah, we used to travel to gigs in a big car, and we listened to a rock radio station on the way, and we used to listen to this particular program, and he played a lot of old 50s classics, and I think he did play Rock Around the Clock. And we said, oh, the next song we got to do a boogie. So we finally went in the studio, and Jeff Beck said, "Oh, I'm going to play the bass." So he played the boogie bass, basically a 12 bar like Rock Around the Clock. I played the drums, and we did the bass and drums first of all, and then we layered it, with the chords, and he finally did that incredible beginning, which which was out of nowhere. So, and it sort of fitted, and we had another great song. So it was a good studio. Yeah.
Nice. And then Jeff's Boogie was on the B side of that too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for doing deep dives into all those songs. I mean, I'm sure you got to, really dig back deep in the recesses of the brain, because you've done, played so much music in the decades since. But I always loved the little trivia on all those songs. So thanks for doing that. What was what was it like? I know the band, I guess they sort of broke up there in 68 for a while. Jimmy Page would go off and form some little band no one's ever heard of, Led Zeppelin. But what did you do in the interim there? Because I know Yardbirds sort of reunited in the early 90s. But remind our listeners what you did during all that time off before the band got inducted in the Rock Hall in 92. What were you doing in between?
Well, first of all, Keith Ralph the singer, and myself, we formed Renaissance, a band that was going, still going actually, more of a prog rock band, and we did that for a while. And then we did, after Keith died, we had another band called Illusion, which was very similar to Renaissance. And then, of course, in the 80s, we did Box of Frogs, and Chris Dreyer and Paul Samuel-Smith and Jeff Beck and myself. We were both involved. We were all involved in that project, and other solo projects. So I've been working all that time really on different projects.
Oh yeah, definitely. Awesome. What was it like getting inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '92? Was it nice to know that that people are honoring all the contributions? I mean, we listed all the famous people that came out of the Yardbirds, but was it nice? Was it nice that the band itself was getting recognized as itself, one of the all-time greats?
Oh yes, it was very, very gratifying, and it was great that the evening, there were so many great people there, Keith Richard, Little Richard, B.B. King, loads and loads of rock and roll legends, and the great thing was we got inducted beside Johnny Cash.
Wow.
And Johnny Cash was one of our heroes, when we were at school. So we used to have a school band, and we played some of Johnny Cash's songs. So standing up there next to Johnny Cash was very special for me in particular.
Was he dressed in black?
Oh yes, he had the classic look, the black tuxedo and all that. And also, of course, Jimi Hendrix got inducted. I mean, he wasn't there, of course, but he got inducted at the same time, and also Booker T and the MGs. So we were in good company.
Quite a class. All right. Well, before we run real quick, tell our listeners, I want you to be able to plug your memoirs, your autobiographies. I guess you wrote Nobody Told Me in 2018, followed up with She Walks in Beauty in 2021. Tell us just about, what all you cover in the books, why we should go pick them up. This interview can only cover so much. You got to read the books, right?
Nobody Told Me has got all these stories in, some of the stuff I've told you, of course, and much more, stories about playing with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all that, and how we all came together. And She Walks in Beauty is a bit of a paranormal book, because a couple of years ago I lost my wife to cancer. And,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Afterwards, we did some I managed to communicate with her, which was very special for me. And so I wrote about, how I did it and all the people all the things I learned and all the people I listened to, and it was an interesting journey. So that book is quite different, but the autobiography is the one all about the band.
Great. What do you mean by you're able to communicate? If you don't mind me asking, like through a medium or through prayer? What do you think?
Well, I learned to. Well, it's quite a long story, but I learned to sit and tune in to her and pick up stuff she was telling me.
Wow.
And I got a lot of evidence, and it's all in the book, actually. Because I learned you had to get evidence. So I asked her, well, tell me something I don't know about somebody, or tell me something I'm going to see, or something I'm going to do. And all these things happened. So as far as I was concerned, that was her, and this was, down to earth evidence. These things were happening, and so I went along with it. And I thought, well, I'll have to write a book about it. So I told all the stories in the book. It's quite interesting.
Oh, I got goosebumps. All right, so if that's a hell of a teaser to pick up She Walks in Beauty right there. Find out the beyond, the supernatural connection. Man, that is so pick that one up, and then also, get the autobiography Nobody Told Me, and read all about Jim McCarty. We tried to cover as much as we could here in the interview, but there's so much more. So read the books. Jim, thanks so much for doing this. Again, everyone, the Yardbirds are coming to Rams Head in Annapolis on September 24th, so you got to get your tickets. We really appreciate you joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jason. It's really good to talk to you. Yeah, really, really good to be here. And I love Annapolis. It's a great little place.
Absolutely. Well, Annapolis is going to get rocked by the Yardbirds. They don't even know it's about to hit them, baby. Bring it on.
Yeah, they're going to hear all those songs we spoke about.
And many, many more. All right. Well, we really appreciate you joining us. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Okay, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.